So now I would like to introduce our demonstrator today. Susan Murphy was really, really, really nice to us because she was able to step in right away. It turns out Susan was supposed to do this demo back in July when we lost access to YEI, and she couldn't come to the other July meeting, so we put her in October. Well, fortunately, she had it all ready to go, and she said yes when I asked her yesterday to step in for us. Susan, as you may know, she's been a member since 2019.
2019, woo!
And just from what I understand, she started woodturning in 2019, hoping to do something together with her children, and you've successfully done that.
Well, at least 1 out of 3 isn't bad.
Susan's been very active in the club since she began, because for a couple of years, I don't remember the exact dates, for our club videos, Susan did the editing on those for a while. She was the assistant treasurer until earlier this year, when she became the appointed treasurer to fill out the rest of the year when Dennis Egan had chosen to retire from that position. She's been a very active member of the Women in Turning group. She has actually demonstrated this cupcake technique to the WIT group. She did a demo for you as a part of the Women in Turning in January, so she's no stranger to being up front and behind the lathe.
Still nervous.
Well, you're allowed to be nervous. I really encourage you to check out her gallery page on the website, because she does a variety of different styles, some of which she has over here. Some you see that she's going to demonstrate today are these cupcake boxes. And other than that, I really want to thank her for being so willing to step in at the very last minute. So with that, I'll let Susan take the stage.
Yeah. Yes, Ken stated I started turning, to do something with my children. Savannah's stuck with it, and she's a member of the Women in Turning too, and so she really likes it. Kathy can get her turning better than I can because she doesn't like to listen to me. So it's true. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how I do cupcake boxes. I saw this idea many, many years ago regarding cupcakes. I thought that was so cute because it was a little lidded box and it looked like a cupcake. And it took me several years to figure out how I wanted to do it, because it was too many steps on how they were showing it. And then I saw other people do it. So there are different ways to do it, but my way is absolutely everything is on the lathe. I don't hand carve anything. So I call that cheating. And the biggest thing about it is you can do all different sizes, but they are all a lidded box. And except for these 3 right here, because I wanted to see how small I can get, this is a little Christmas ornament, but it is still hollowed. I used the same process for this little one, but I glued it because I figured if you put it on your Christmas tree, you don't want the bottom to fall off. But it is still hollowed. And then you also have your oopses, which I call design opportunities. On this particular box, if you notice it, when you open it, it's different than anything else. But what happened when I was turning it, my tool caught the edge, and so my flutes, it chipped. So I had to cut it down. And when I was cutting it down, I was like, man, that's going to be a small little box. So I'm like, whew. So I hollowed the inside a little deeper than I normally would. And so I made it just a little different looking box. But the tools that you'll need for any of these is really simple, but it's a jig. And Dave Madden, I went to his house in Flagstaff, and he taught me how to do the jigs. And so that's the really important part of this. So I'm going to go over to this camera here. The first thing is your platform. And in this particular platform, it's just a plywood, just so you'll need a good piece of wood, sturdy. And then on the bottom, it's a pipe flange. And then you have your conduit. It's just screwed in. So this is 1 inch because the banjo is 1 inch. So whatever banjo you're using, you would want to get your fittings to fit that. And on this particular one, I have it mounted up front instead of in the center, because on my lathe, my banjo, I don't know, distance, I needed something closer to the front. And then up top, we put just a little threaded nut. And this is a piece of aluminum I had at home. And the guide moves back and forth for your angle, because each of your cupcakes the angle will change on depending on how you shape it. So you can have a flat shape cupcake. As you can see, some of them are more up and down. You can have more of an angle. So it's really whatever you choose. And then the other part of my table is just the other piece of the aluminum. And I just clamp it on here because the router I needed support on the back. And so that's what this is. But really simple to make, but it took me years to figure it out. And then it took me asking a club member for help. And then Dave was so gracious to help me. And he actually supplied except for the aluminum, he supplied all the parts for it. The other part that is important, and this is really expensively made, it's a 2x4. And it has a hole cut. And this is a trim router. And this is what I'm using, but you could use whatever router you have. You just need to make a jig for it so that it holds. And on this particular one, I have it offset further out so that I have more space. And the other tip is it's just a V-groove router bit. So your V-groove router bit, your router, a jig to hold your router because you're going to need something sturdy, and then a flat platform is all you really need that's special to make the cupcake boxes. And everything else is made on your lathe. Let me see. That's that. And then I sent out some instructions that have pictures. So if you haven't seen it, it was sent out last night. Kathy, she helped me make this because I wanted pictures in it, so she helped me format it. And but it has each step on what I'll be doing, because I'm not going to show everything today, because the biggest part is how do you get those ribs? How do you get those grooves? And even on my little tiny ones, I used my router. I didn't do anything by hand. I used everything. And so you'll start off with your piece of wood. I started saying, you need 3 inches by at least 5 inches. So really, it's whatever piece of wood you have. And for me, it was whatever piece of wood I took my chainsaw to on my branches outside, because that's how I got all my wood. I'm using pine or juniper because that's what I have on my land that's died. And so I just take the branches, and they're dry already because they're all dead. I do have some live trees, but haven't trimmed those yet. But for the smaller ones, it's just the smaller branches. And so, but you want to make sure that any cracks that you have are treated first, because you're going to be turning. And then when you're using your router, if you hit a crack, you could have a chance of the rib might break on you. So get your piece of wood, and then the first thing that you're going to do, of course, is you're going to round it, and then you're going to put a tenon on it that fit your chuck. So you have this round piece, and then after you get your tenon, then you're going to measure out on your piece of wood on how big you want your cupcake, and then you're going to use your parting tool, and you're going to put a groove because you need some space, and then you shape. Then you're just going to shape your cupcake however you want to shape it: straight, flat, angled, sharp angle, little angle, it doesn't matter. But you're still working with a solid piece. You haven't hollowed it yet. You're not going to hollow it until after you make your grooves. Then on this particular one, the really important thing is you want to make sure that your I guess you would call it your cupcake opening is smaller than the back base, because this part right back here is going to be your lid. I'm going to grab one of these so I can show you. I'll just grab this one. So basically, it's sitting like this right now. This is this piece of wood. This is how it's going to be shaped. So your end on this end, so this end right here, needs to be smaller than this end right here, because what you're going to do when you part it off, you're going to flip it, and that's where you're going to make your tenon, and that's how your lid is going to fit tight. And you at least want your ribs to be flush, if not the top part hanging over. So on this particular one, you can see this part right here is larger than this. So what I need to do is I need to shape it down. So I'm going to be taking this part, and I'm just going to keep this shape that I have, because all I did was preform this, cut it real quick, and got the shape. But now I need to make it so that this top part is smaller than this part here. And then after I do that, I'm going to be parting this off, but through the wonders of TV, I already have it cut off. I have a different chuck with it to show you how you can then you're going to make your tenon so that your lid fits tight. And then once you have that, then you can start forming your top. And how you form your top really depends on your imagination. I've done ribs. I have one that I just did one sweep with a cherry on top. I've done a whole bunch of ribs. You can do it flat. It's really whatever design you want. But really the most important part of this is everything's done on the lathe. I'm not hand carving anything, and I'm using my jig with my trim router because it makes it really fast. One thing you want to rely on is your indexing. My machine at home and this one has an indexing that it will lock your chuck in place because you don't want it to go around. And then depending on how many your index, most of them are 24, but mine at home is 24. So that means it takes 24 rotations to go to a complete circle. And if you don't have a machine that does indexing, your chuck on the back side might have holes for indexing. So you would make a jig for that. If you don't have any of that, there are ways that you can make your own indexing jig. And I believe Dean Humphrey, if you can correct me, the college has some type of indexing that you can hook onto your chuck. Is that correct? I don't know. I think Dean's here. Yeah. So there are different ways. I'm just grateful that my lathe has an indexer, so I don't have to worry about it, even though it is a little different than this one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my face shield on. I'm going to trim this down, and then I'm going to show you how I set up my platform, because there's a couple points when you set up your router and your platform so that your indexing goes really smoothly. So,
any questions so far? Any questions?
Oh, I got to change glasses because I'm blind. I can see far away with those, but I can't see up close. But now I can see up close. Okay. So I'm just going, can you still hear me? Okay. So I'm just going to, like I said, I'm going to trim this down so that my top part is smaller than the back end, which would be my lid. And the only reason I have to do that is because my piece of wood had a knot right here in the branch, and so it was smaller in the middle than it was on each end. So I usually just do a scrape cut for the most part, but using your spindle gouge or your roughing gouge or your bowl, whatever you're comfortable with, you want to get it started and then just go down. So I want to make sure that this end is smaller. Than that. And that gives me where I need to go and where I can shape. I would be more comfortable if I was on a stand because I'm short. Let's see if that will work. Alright. It would help if my tool wasn't. And the other reason you want to have your parting tool apart is so that when your router comes up, you're not hitting the lid, because you will get really close to it. This is going backwards, isn't it? Because how do you turn this? Because I just turned this on. It's going the opposite way. Yeah. I was like, why am I having such a hard time? Is that the right? So, there you go. Wow. That's like cutting butter. I tell you. You can see how nervous I was. It just took me how long to figure out I was going the wrong way. Okay. I don't know how. Mine at home doesn't have a reverse on it, so I don't have to worry about that. So now that you have this part smaller, you can sand it just a little bit just to get the rough edges off of it, but you don't have to because you're going to be sanding once you route it. But now there's not very much space here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down just a little bit more with my parting tool, just to give me a little bit more room for when I do the ribs from the router. So you've had it shaped, you have it ready, you got your rib, you're ready for doing your ribs. You're going to lock in your indexing, and then I'm going to set up the platform. Now this is where it's really important. What you want to do is pull back. I like to use the cone live center because for this part here, which is you have to make sure, get that there, that your router is exactly center. And I know this fits in here because I tried it. Wait. Huh? Well, the inside. Oh, I gotta get that over. There we go. The little inside thing. There we go. So, very flat. Make sure that you're flat and level. And then you want to push your router table up just so that you can make sure that the tip of your router is right at the tip of your center. And then you want to tighten. And see, that's why I have this. See how my router went back and forth? That's why I got this. That's so that now it won't wobble. And then you just want to tighten up the center. Okay. I have a piece of tape on my pipe so that when I put it on my banjo at home, it just goes right to the piece of duct tape. So I know I'm really close to where I need to be. And then this part, I keep, if you have enough room, you can keep your tailstock up just to keep it safe. This is where your angle of your router comes in play. And how I shape it is I put the tip of the router right onto the piece of wood up front. And then I get my little bar touching my touching the router, and then I go to the back and then I get that centered. So this is where your angle comes into play. So no matter what shape you have your cupcake, you'll always be able to get a straight line. And then once you have that, I use my handy dandy clamp to clamp it in place. I have another clamp to clamp my back piece in place just so that I have something to ride on. Your depth. Now this is the other semi-critical, it's not that critical, part of how deep do you go into your piece of wood. Let me pull this up a little bit. So depending, get this one and this one. This, with this piece, you can see the ribs are real sharp. It has a really sharp edge to it. Am I not hearing? Okay. It has a real sharp edge to it. And that is because the tip was deeper into the piece of wood. And on a V-groove router bit, you have where your edges meet. So if your piece of, if your tip goes into your piece of wood deep enough, you'll get a really sharp edge, just like a cupcake paper. If it doesn't, you'll end up with a little flatter. Your piece of wood on your outside rib would be a little flatter. And so on this particular one, I kind of liked it. I liked it flat. And on this one, I did it real sharp. So it really depends on how you want your piece, but that's how you're going to get your depth. And on those little tiny ones, I barely went in. I was just using the tip. And I was just going just really lightly on the tip of it. Okay, so once you get your angle correct, now you need to get your depth. And so that's where you would just push in your banjo. And I want to go about. And what I'm looking at is the tip on the V groove. there's, where it angles up and then it goes straight, I'm looking right at that top angle. So I'm pushing it in so that it meets just before that top angle. And then if you lock in your banjo, it's going to move. So be careful. And then you have to double check all your things. And how I measure this is I'm looking at the distance between the piece of metal that I put a piece of metal on the bottom because I was just using the wood and it was starting to bend. And, from moving it back and forth, it was just because it's pine, it's, real soft. So I put angle aluminum, I just super glued it on and made it flat so that I have something sharp going on to something sharp. So however you make your jig, you just want to make sure that you have something good, sturdy, because you're going to be pushing down and you're going to be pushing forward. So it's like a down forward motion up against your top railing, and that's how you're going to get your groove straight. So let me just make sure I got this straight there. And I'm just moving it to make sure that my distance is the same on everything. I want to make sure I get it indexed. On this one, it's 24. On this one, you have to push in and twist it so that it's locked in place, because you want to make sure your indexing is locked in place. I got my distance a little bit too far in. Put it out a little bit more. There we go. Need some power. Oh, you guys took up my extra power in the front. That'll work. Make sure it's on. So this is going to be a little loud. I'm going to do a couple of them. Since my indexer at home is in the front, so it's easier for me to reach. So what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to cut a rib. I'm going to turn off my router so I can re-index it, and then I'll do a couple more, and then I'll show you the next step. But by holding down, holding forward, and then I go again. On my first ones, I noticed because I didn't have this back piece, so I wobbled a little bit. But I found that that's okay, because I can just use the sawdust that I'm creating or from what I turned, and I can use some wood glue and I can make it flat because I was painting them. But if this is like a really nice piece of wood, you want to be, careful that you're really solid when you're moving it. So then you go into the next index spot. And so this one, was that the next one? On this one, I think I'm going to have to, there we go. There we go. And you'll repeat this process until you got it all the way around. So this one, this lathe, it looks like it's a 32 indexer. Okay. I'll show you what it's starting to look like. So at this point, you'll continue all the way around when you're doing your indexing with your router. And then what I do then is I take some sandpaper, and because sometimes there might be a little phrase on the edge, so I'll go around with some sandpaper. then at that point, then you hollow. So once you have it all indexed, because that's the reason you hollow last is because it's going to, depending on your angle, how deep your indexing is for your ribs, that's going to show you how deep, or for your thickness on your cupcake. So at this point, I would then hollow once all the ribs are around. But like I said, due to TV, I'm just going to switch chucks.
We have a question.
Any question?
Susan, I noticed that you skipped an indexing position. What are you looking for on the final flutes to know if you go 1, 2, or 3 flutes or indexing positions at a time?
And that's really depending on your machine. And mine at home is 24, and it works really good for me. It's how close are my ribs. Because on a cupcake, when you look at a cupcake paper, they're uniform. And so on this particular one, it was too close, because then that would cut my rib down smaller. And so I just went up one more, just see where it is, so that it has the right distance of what I'm looking for that rib.
Another question?
So when you're doing your router,
Yes.
couldn't you put a stop block so once you figure out how far to go, it stops, so you don't make mistakes?
You can put a stop block. On mine, I just cut my groove, and because I have hit the lid before, and so I've actually had scallops all the way around, but they went away because I had to make my tenon. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. Depending on how you make your router and your jig and your flat platform, you can put a stop. Yep.
Have you ever tried any other angles?
I didn't hear the question.
Did you ever try any other angled bits?
Have I tried any other angled bits? No, I've only used my V. Yep. Because it's been giving me the shape that I've wanted. Not to say that there isn't a better one out there. Okay, so okay, so at this point, imagine all
One
ribbed
more
around.
question, Susan.
Yep. Everything's ribbed. Yeah.
Do you typically go 12 or 24 ribs?
24.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I have magically done is I've gone around and I've made all my ribs. And I've hollowed. And to hollow, whatever you're comfortable with. On some of my cupcakes, I like a really flat inside with a sharp bottom, just because how a cupcake cup paper is. So I'll use my square carbide to get down and go straight across. I've also used my round carbide to get a really nice curve on the inside. I've used just my spindle gouge, so it really depends on what shape and look I'm looking for on this. So, and how I part it, because it's hollow and I don't want to lose my cupcake. When I part it, I keep my tails, not so it's touching, but I keep it up so that when it comes completely off, it hits the your live center, and so that it's just something whole, so it's not flying. Oops, just like my head. Because I have had that happen, and then it's like it boogered my little ribs, so I had to go there and sand and put some glue and to make it straight. So learning from that, now I just keep my live center in there just a little bit as I'm parting it, because otherwise it goes flying. So now at this point, you have this sanded, it's hollowed, you parted it. And so from where you had your marking on the, you know, from when you used your parting tool to get that little space, that's your start for your tenon for the inside. And this is actually your top now. So you're taking this piece and you're flipping it, and you're going to make this fit snugly. And so right now it actually is not too bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and make this a little bit wider here, because this is going to end up going into your chuck, so that when you start shaping and you get it to where you like the shape of it, you can you need to finish it off to here, right? Because you it's in your chuck. So you're going to flip it and put it into your chuck so that you can get your cherry or your swirl on the top, or your flat, however you want to do your top. So everything so far I haven't removed to anything else. So let me shape this a little bit and show you how that works. Now that I have the machine going the right way, it's going to go a lot easier, and I won't be fighting with it. I hear me breathing, so I'm trying to put the mic out of my way. Okay. Let's get this in. Right, and I gotta move that. Okay. All right. And I still keep my tailstock up, as I keep it up as long as possible. And I, even when I turn it around, I'll still put the tailstock back up, even up to the very end of doing the cherry part, because I just feel a little safer having something helping me grip. So any questions while I get this set up? I'm going to start shaping it. So I want to make this a little bit deeper, so that when I flip it around to go into my chuck, I have something to hold on to. Depending on, I should say, how small you go, it won't fit into your chuck. So I've used pin jaws on these little ones. On these little ones, I have a chuck that has little pin jaws. So when I flip it, my pin jaws are holding it like this, so I can finish off the cherry. I've also done some where this outside rim area will fit into the inside of the chuck. Just depends on how big you go. You need to remember how am I going to hold that at the end so I can finish it off. So it was real tricky on the little tiny ones, because I was like barely grabbing onto it. But I still, even on those little ones, I had my tailstock up, because it also gave me my little dip, my little nipple for when I had to screw. I used my Jacob's chuck with a little tiny screw, and I'll show you the wire at the end on to do the little wire loop. Okay, got that going the right way. Make sure. Okay. All right. Put my shield bag on. Oh wait, I want my, because I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger so that I have something to grab onto, because this is a bigger piece. And I have to test it, because you want to make sure it fits. So I need to go a little bit, just itty bitty bit smaller, because it doesn't quite fit up there. So at this step, it does take a little bit back and forth just to make sure that you have a good solid fit. There we go. And it's not wobbling too much. If it wobbles too much, if you went in because you kind of skipped and your tool slid on you, which never happened, you can just take off a little bit more. That's why you want, to leave yourself a little bit more room on your top end. Yeah, because that never happened before where your tool slips. No. Okay, so that fits pretty good. At this point, you can, whatever tool you're comfortable with, put this up there. I sometimes will use my round carbide just to give me a little round edge to take off, because I'm used to using it and it's easy. Because a lot of my stuff is just shear. I'm just doing a shear cut, but I want to smooth out the edge a little bit. And for me, the round carbide, to smooth that off is a little easier. And then on this, I'm just going to take it in because I want a little groove about right there. I'm taking this down. And I wore a wrong shirt because everything's going down it. Beads and coves. You want to, so once you get your first shape, that's going to tell you what the rest is going to look like. So, and when you do icing on a cupcake, it goes smaller as you go up. So your next little hump or whatever on mine for my icing is shorter than this one. So I'm going to take it in. Wow, it cuts so much better when you're going the right way. I'm just telling you. And this is just shear. If you notice, I'm not getting any curls because this is like a really dead pine branch that was just pretty junky. That's why it was dead. But it makes for a good cupcake because it was free. Yeah, so I'm getting more sawdust than shapes, but that's okay. Now that you're getting closer to the top, you want to be careful of your chuck. So at this point, I would sand it. Up to this point, I would sand here. I could also hollow this out a little bit more if I wanted to have the inside hollowed. It just makes it a little lighter. Or like on my one that I oopsed, I had to have it really hollowed to make the box fit inside of it more. I got the piece of wood on this one had a little notch. You can see that there's a little notch there because there was a hole. So if this I have enough room, I could take that down. So I can just curve it down and get rid of that little notch there, because I do have enough room for my ribs. Or I could leave it and then just fill it with my sawdust and wood glue and sand it. Because this piece was really punky. But so what I'm going to do on this one, I will take it down because I didn't bring my wood glue. Whatever. I didn't bring my wood glue. All right. And I have no idea what I'm turning at because it says 0. So I think I'm spinning. Let's see how that looks. That looks better. It's still got a little bit, just a itty bitty bit. I can round it. Okay. So after you get your shape, you sand it, you can hollow it. Now you're going to flip it to finish it off into your chuck. Which one do I got? I got this one. This one's probably a little bit bigger than what my chuck will go, because I have a different chuck at home. I'm not sure. So that's what you have to, ooh, I'm getting close. Might or might not be able to make it. I will. I still, again, I just push this up, push it back, and then I'll tighten it down. And then at this point, you just finish your cherry. However you want to do your top. I just been doing cherries because I like the little loop on the end that I'm making with my copper wire. Okay. I am just using my round carbide, and I am just taking all of this out, and that's spinning. Oh. So you can have a big cherry, a little cherry, The other reason I like my little 60-degree cone is because I can get really close to the tip when I'm turning, and I can get right into there because of the angle, and then I can just get down and go around. So, yeah. And then at this point, I would shape it to around however you decide to shape it. Any questions? Because I don't have to show you how to shape it. So after you get everything shaped with this, I would put my Jacob's chuck in with my drill bit, and the drill bit size you get depends on the kind of wire you're going to use. I just got done building a guest house for my mom. I didn't do it. I had people do it. But they leave a lot of stuff around the house, and one of the things that was left was the wiring that they did for the house. So that's the wire I'm using, is the copper wiring for the house. So my drill bit fits the copper wire. I would drill the hole so that this would fit in. And I'm using it's just a jeweler's tools to make jewelry. It's round, I don't know what you call it, round needle nose, and I take the tip and I just go around the edge, and that's how I get my first loop. And just depends on the style I'm looking for. Sometimes I'll do a couple loops to give it a little stem swirl, and then I'll cut the wire depending on the size I'm looking for. I'll end up cutting the wire. I got little tiny wire cutters, and then I'll use my CA glue. I put a little tiny drip of the CA glue on the tip, and then I'll poke it in the hole, and then that's how it stays in there. At this point, then, after I get all this done, I will paint it. And I'm going to take this off because I don't do that anymore. I got these from the famous shop called Amazon. Yep, everything's shopped on the Amazon. And these are iridescent acrylics. And I'm using acrylic paint. The regular acrylic paint, of course, you can't see through it, but I'm really liking these iridescents because they have a shimmer to it, and you can still see the wood grain be underneath. And so this box is 48 colors, and I'm having fun on finding out what color combinations go with each other. And on some of them, on this particular piece right here, this was a horrible piece of wood. I had to use sanding sealer on it before I even started cutting my ribs because it was so punky. It was just horrible. But so I used the regular, it was a metallic brown from my acrylics to kind of cover everything. And then on the top I used how I got the little confetti, I guess the candy confetti is just a flat brush, and I just dipped it and then I just poked it around. So that's how the little confettis came around. You know, I learned that little trick from taking a class from Kathy dealing with acrylics. So any questions? Yes.
Hold on. Let me get there.
Do I ever make floppy tops where the dough would come over the edge? Yes. I have one up here, which I did that. I just got to find which one it is. It's this one. And how I do that, if you want to do this camera, I did my tenon, and I made sure that the lip was far enough over the edge, and then I recessed it for the width of my cupcake. And so when you recess it, then when you look at it, it has a floppy top. So it's like the cupcake melted over your cupcake paper. So yes, I have done that. Yep. And so you just cut a recess into it. Any other questions?
More questions? Anybody?
No? Okay. That's it. Yes.
Hold on.
Dave has a question.
Let me get there, Dave.
So, Susan, great job. Is this on? Susan, great job. I'm just wondering, I keep thinking after you do these, do you have like a hankering to go eat a dozen cupcakes? Because,
Well,
I mean, they are so good looking. I just would have to have one, you know.
well, you know, what was funny because at the October meeting, I told Jeannie I was going to do the dessert and I was going to make cupcakes. So I will still make the cupcakes for October, but you'll get them later.
Got another question. Hold on. I need roller skates.
What kind of finishes do you use?
This is just straight acrylic. I haven't put any other finish on it. You can, you know, with the acrylics, you can just probably spray a poly over it. But for what I have done, the acrylic paints, especially the iridescence, it just gives it a really neat shimmer, and I like it.
Do you use any sanding sealer before the acrylic?
I did, because only on that one piece that was horrible for me, because that branch must have been like really dead, because every time I tried to even round it, it was falling apart. So, and I didn't at that time I didn't have a vacuum chamber so that I could, you know, use a vacuum pump and use like cactus juice to help seal that piece of wood. All I had at home was sanding sealer, so I used that.
Thank you.
But I have one now because of Dean. I haven't used it yet. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you have any other questions or anything, just come see me afterwards.